Hi, welcome to the Fair Oaks CPAC meeting. And this is Chair Friedman. I'll hand it over to our meeting clerk, Jarrell Johnson, to do our meeting announcements. And she can also then do a roll call and call our first item.
Okay, this is Darrell with the clerk of the board. And just a couple of things. I just wanted to let you know that I just spoke with member Starkovic, and he's going to be joining momentarily. So I'll just go ahead and start with the announcements, and then I'll do the roll call to give him a second to join. Announcements is in compliance with directives of the county, state, and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. This meeting is live streamed and closed to in-person public participation. Temporary procedures are subject to change pursuant to guidelines related to social distancing and minimizing person-to-person contact. To make a verbal comment at today's meeting, dial 916-875-2500 and follow the prompts to be placed in queue for a specific agenda item or off-agenda matter. When the chair opens public comment for a specific agenda item or off-agenda matter, callers will be transferred from the queue into the meeting to make a verbal comment. Written comments are also accepted. Send your email to boardclerk@saccounty.net, and your comment will be routed to the board and filed in the record. And now I'm going to go on to roll call. Member Bowman, Member Korkos, Member Lease,
Present.
Member Starkovic, Member Walter, Member Wood, and Member Friedman. Member Friedman, can you hear me?
Oh, yep. Are you able to hear me?
Okay, present. Okay, and Member Starkovic still hasn't got on the line yet, but he'll probably join momentarily. He understands that we just got started, so he'll be joining soon. And you do not have a quorum as of yet, but this is just an informational workshop, so we can still continue on. And that concludes my announcements.
Okay. And then I can actually go ahead and call the first item. It's actually the only item on the agenda other than just public comment. Just a few comments for anyone wishing to make public comment who may join. Just you do not need to announce your name, but we would like to know your name if you are willing to share that information. Public comments are going to be 3 minutes, and there's information on the county's website, public comments live, or how to send those in. And members of the CPAC are volunteers and members of the community, and we encourage your participation. So with that, I'll go ahead and call the first item, which is PLNP 2020-00043, SB2 Housing Production Streamlining and Acceleration Amendments to the General Plan, Zoning Code, and Countywide Design Guidelines. This is an informational workshop for community planning advisory councils on proposed regulation amendment package related to housing production streamlining and acceleration. And I think we have Thomas from the county. Were you making that presentation, or?
Correct, yeah. This is Thomas Vogt, Associate Planner with the Office of Planning and Environmental Review. And I guess I'll go right ahead. Alrighty. So on the slide right now is an overview of what this workshop item is, and I'll give a little background here. 2019, the Sacramento County Office of Planning and Environmental Review received grant funding from the state of California called the SB2 grant. The goal of this funding is to encourage the development of plans that streamline multifamily housing approvals and accelerate all types of housing production. Per staff began this effort by reviewing existing zoning code, general plan, and design guideline language related to housing. Staff also referenced feedback provided by community stakeholder groups, such as the Building Industry Association and Housing Sacramento, as well as the American Institute of Architects. We use those feedback to further inform our potential amendment. And after review and initial outreach was completed, Staff identified key areas for amendments, which will be outlined for you tonight. These include amendments to the zoning code to address development standards, allowed uses, and review processes related to housing developments. Amendments to the zoning code related to new state mandates around density bonus programs. And amendments to the multifamily design guidelines to comply with new state regulations requiring objective design standards for multifamily residential development and to mirror the proposed zoning code amendment. Specific language for each of these amendment areas is still being worked out and finalized, but at the end of this presentation, staff is hoping to have a discussion with the Fair Oaks CPAC about these target amendment areas that I mentioned and any recommendations for specific changes or concerns that the CPAC might have. And the full proposed amendment package, including the strike-through language, is going to be brought before the Planning Commission for public review in late July. That's the date we're aiming for. And all the CPACs will be notified of that public meeting, and you'll be able to review basically all of those materials prior to that meeting. Next slide, please. So the first target area is expanding the range of housing product types allowed in low-density residential zones and commercial zones. The amendments that we're proposing would allow small duplex and multifamily products in the commercial and low-density residential zones by right, and it would allow larger projects with a use permit, and we define small projects meaning 10 or fewer lots or units. There's going to be no change in the density allowed in each zone. So for example, a property that is about a half acre in the RD4 zone, which is a residential zone with a density of 4 dwelling units per acre, it would still only allow 2 units to be developed on this property, either as 2 single family dwellings on separate lots or as a duplex on a single lot. That's a change that's proposed, whereas currently that site could only be developed as 2 single-family dwellings. So no change in the density, but we are proposing to allow additional just product type, so like in this instance, a duplex. And the goal is to provide more flexibility in design and potential for redevelopment of some of the underutilized properties in the county, and a better ability for our small infill developments to recoup some of the development costs associated with multifamily development. Next slide, please. The second target area is the multifamily residential development standards. So we've often heard from potential developers that specific development standards within our code are major barriers to making multifamily residential projects work, even on properties that are zoned for multifamily development. So for example, developers will often have difficulty meeting our minimum density on smaller multifamily zone properties, let alone our nominal density, our requested density, without asking for deviations from our developments. So one example of that is currently our multifamily development, our multifamily setbacks from a single family development for like a 2-story multifamily is 50 feet. And on a lot of these smaller multifamily lots, a 50-foot setback pretty much eats up the whole lot and it makes it undevelopable. So we're proposing some changes to the setbacks to basically make these smaller lots more easy to develop. And you can see on the screen here, there's another example of a reduction in setbacks. So the front yard setback is being reduced from 25 feet to 20 feet. But to ensure that these amendments don't go too far into areas with predominantly low density residential development, we're proposing to create an infill property category that retains the more restrictive standards. So an infill property would be defined as a lot that is 2 gross acres or less with at least 2 adjacent properties zoned for low density residential. And this is an item that we're looking for feedback on if the CPAC has any comments or recommendations about reductions to our current multifamily. Next slide, please. So the third target area is the process for requesting deviations from multifamily residential development standards. Currently, deviations require approval of a special development permit from the Planning Commission, which is very expensive and time-consuming, like some around the tune of, I believe, $14,000. Takes about 6 to 8 months. So staff is proposing to create a minor special development permit that can be used for a limited number of deviation requests from the multifamily residential development standards and our design standards, and also from our accessory dwelling unit standards. That would be set up kind of similar to the minor use permit. The decision would be by the planning director after an analysis by staff and a public comment period. There would be no CPAC review, but it would be appealable to the Board of Zoning Appeals and subject to CEQA. And the kind of proposed cost we're looking at is around $1,200. Would take a few months to process. So it would be a significant cost and time saving. We're still looking at the extent of the minor special development permit and exactly how far that will reach, but that is something we would also like feedback from the CPAC on. And we're also looking at moving projects that would not qualify for this minor special development permit from a planning commission special development permit to a zoning administrator special development permit. So for projects that don't qualify for this reduced special development permit, we're just basically looking to bring it down one level from planning commission to zoning administrator. Next slide, please. Fourth area of targeted amendments is zoning code language relating to density bonus programs. So this area is unrelated to the other amendment areas that we've been discussing, and it only pertains to multifamily residential products that have regulatory agreements to serve certain target populations. So on the screen you can see some of these target populations would be disabled veterans, homeless persons, college students, low-income people with low income. So these density bonus amendments that you see on the screen, those would only affect projects that are kind of like deed restricted or otherwise restricted to serving these communities. The state laws have changed pretty radically since this program was originally added into the zoning code. And so we are updating our code to be consistent with the state law. And let's see, these amendments include expansions to the types of regulated housing that can receive density bonuses, the amount of density bonuses that can be requested, and the number of development standard waivers that a project can. Next slide, please. The fifth area of amendments is the countywide design guidelines. The recent state legislation has required local jurisdictions to use only objective standards when reviewing the design of a multifamily residential development. So currently our countywide design guidelines are subjective. So as an example, a subjective standard would be fences and walls need to be compatible with the surrounding area, whereas an objective standard would be only wrought iron fences are allowed along street frontages. So currently, we only have subjective standards, but the state is requiring that we have objective standards. So we're converting many of the existing standards within our multifamily design guidelines to turn them into design standards. They would be treated the same as development standards, so a special development permit would be required to deviate from any of these. And like I said before, it would be made up of a lot of our existing design guidelines. And kind of the intent of that is to make sure that we balance some of the reductions of development standards that we listed before with making sure that we have a quality compatible project moving forward. Next slide, please. This is kind of our final grab bag of proposed amendments. So there are changes to the zoning code for definitions of emergency shelters, as well as the addition of a low barrier navigation center and allowing those in zones where emergency shelters are allowed, which is our general commercial and light industrial zones. as well as the addition of permanent supportive housing, allowing or creating a definition and allowing that in residential zones consistent with single family and multifamily uses, as well as modifications to internal procedures, application forms, and the user guide to address SB 35 and SB 330, which streamline housing development projects by limiting the number of hearings, processing timelines, and level of review. Next slide, please. So this is kind of our CPAC roadshow. We're doing a workshop with all 14 CPACs, and that'll be going through the end of this month. Staff is hoping to finalize these draft amendments to the zoning code, the general plan, and the design guidelines, and bring them before the County Planning Commission for a workshop there at the end of July. And kind of the next steps after that is we will go back to the Planning Commission for a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, and then we'll bring the whole package to the Board of Supervisors by the end of December of this year. So hopefully these changes will be in effect kind of at the start of 2022. And we do have a website. So if you go to our webpage, planning.saccounty.net, under our What's New section in the bottom right, there's a webpage for the SB2 housing production streamlining and acceleration efforts. If you have any questions or comments after this meeting or just in general concerning this effort, you can email Jessica Brandt. Her email is on the screen, or her contact information and my contact information are also available on the web. Next slide, please. And that's the end. Staff is hoping to have a discussion with the Fair Oaks CPAC about the target amendment areas that we discussed previously, and also asking for any recommendations for specific changes or concerns that you might have about any of the proposed amendments. And I'd be happy to revisit any of the specific topic areas and provide further details as well. Thank you.
Go ahead and open this up to comments and questions from the members, and then we'll see if we have any public comment. I had a few questions, and I know you said you wanted to have a discussion specifically about the infill property category. I love the minor special development permit with the accelerated timeline. I think that's a great addition in general. Mm-hmm. A couple of quick questions. On the density bonus program, there's a point, rental property affordability increase from 30 to 55 years. Could you, I'm not quite sure I understand what that means.
Yeah. So basically, when a project is affordable and they're working with the state and the county to make it affordable, we basically restrict it to that affordability for 30 years. And they need to serve the target population and kind of, continue with their agreement for 30 years. And some of the changes to the state density bonus program will now extend that to 55 years. So they'll kind of be bound to their rental agreements for an extended, 15 years.
Does that apply if ownership changes on the property?
I believe so, but I would have to check back on that. Yeah, I don't think you can, at least to keep receiving, whatever concessions, I don't think you can sell it and get out.
The other clarification was on the other housing related changes slides, which I believe is slide 8, the emergency shelters. Could you explain what low barrier navigation centers are?
Yeah, so those are it's a type of supportive housing where basically it's the in between. I don't want to say halfway house, but it's basically the in between of getting to a more permanent supportive housing, as you can see in that next bullet. Oh, well, it's not on the screen. The next bullet there, the permanent supportive housing. So it's kind of the in between the two. So it's a type of housing that's very it has like a low barrier to entry, and it provides a lot of resources to help someone get into a more permanent supportive housing agreement.
Okay, gotcha. Once you explain it, it makes perfect sense. I was really trying to envision something with physical barriers. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
The small fence house, yeah.
Yeah, really. Like I just don't get it. Member Elise or Member Sarkovich, did you have any questions for the county?
Actually, am I unmuted now? Thanks. Member Starkovich here. Thanks, Chair. Is it a hassle to bring up the slides again? Because there were some things that I believe are now terms of art that I'm not so much familiar with. I mean, for instance, like it was slide, I think 2 or something like that, when you refer to by right allowance. What exactly does that mean? Someone has that was on the first or second slide or something. Ooh, I just saw it go by. There we go. So what 2 questions on this slide. So what does by right allowance mean?
By right allowance, so that would be within our zoning code, within Chapter 3, we have all of our use tables, and something that is allowed by right is something that is just permitted. So you don't need to apply for a conditional use permit to do it. Yeah, so it's just something that you can do. It doesn't mean that it's, that we have no say in it, because usually there'll be some sort of stipulation attached, but it is something that you don't have to go through a discretionary process or a public process to.
So it's almost like the rights are attached to the property or whatever. So you look at the table and you can do what it is within this zoning code thing. Second question. So RD, the what is considered low density residential can go up to 10 units per acre. Is that correct?
Yeah. So technically the low density residential is, I believe, RD1 through RD7. So when we're talking RD or residential districts, the number means the dwelling units allowed per acre. So the low density is technically 1 through 7, and then there's kind of some overlap with RD10, which is the 10 dwelling units per acre. But in this context, when talking about these small projects, we're talking about like new developments that would result in 10 units or less. That would be considered a small project. So like an infill of a 4-acre lot or something like that, versus these much larger apartment complexes and stuff like that. Basically, the intent here was we have a lot of these properties in the county that are zoned for either multifamily or residential, and they just can't be used. So we're trying to figure out a way to make that a little easier.
No, that's really a very good goal. A very good goal on that one. I like that. The next slide, I think, was that the one that started talking infill? Was that the setbacks changes? Yeah. Okay. So as we struggle for like moving from subjective to objective, right? Was there already a definition of infill? Because it's bandied about by people. Just it's like anything that goes in between two things, right? That's infill. Well, was the county already have a definition of that, or is this a new definition that you're creating through here?
To my knowledge, I don't think we have a definition of infill. What'll probably happen is within like Chapter 5 of the zoning code, which is our development standards, there'll be a little footnote that says this is considered an infill, and it'll say if it meets these conditions, then it's considered infill, and we'll probably put it into Chapter 7, which is our definitions chapter. I know, in planning worlds and planning adjacent worlds, so like infill has a very different meaning when you're talking about CEQA and the California Environmental Quality Act, but this specific case will pretty much just exist within our realm of Chapter 5 and Chapter 7, as far as I know.
Yeah, so we'll have a shared definition then, really, with respect to that as people involved with the community and developing and things. Cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great. Next slide. I got a note here. Was that one? Minor special developments. Oh, and this was just like one of those out of the blue things. The goal, of course, and great, and as the chair said, this is a really good one. Even though it takes away responsibility from the CPAC, though, I adjust somewhat. Let's see, but the reducing cost of time. So how does that? How are you seeing that? I see taking maybe one step or two steps out of the process for an applicant or something like that. But just tell me a little bit more about that, where the realization of that goal, that vision is.
Yeah. So the Planning Commission is one of the higher hearing authorities, right? So currently, if you need to deviate from any multifamily development standard, you need to go to the Planning Commission.
Right.
And there's just a much higher set of findings that need to be made, and just the review is much more intensive. Whereas with the minor special development permit, the review is still happening. I don't want to say
no, and I get that. In fact, I just say that I think didn't the city of Sacramento go through a very similar process of setting their thresholds for different, and maybe that's a good question, because how is this aligned with the other jurisdictions within the county?
Yeah, I haven't looked at City of Sacramento's method for deviations. That's a really good point, though. That's something that I definitely would like to look at. For this minor special development permit, we've been crafting some very specific findings for it. It's as well. So the kind of trade-off of a lower hearing authority and less processing time is that the findings might be a little bit more aggressive in that they'll be very specific. So one that's being proposed right now, and it may or may not show up in the package for the Planning Commission, is just that a reduced setback needs to allow for increased circulation, or something to that degree. So we are trying to, we don't want to make it, they can go ahead and do anything, right? But
no. I mean, you're still planning. It's just you're trying to keep up with the evolving marketplace and demand for products and all that stuff like that. Cool. Yeah. No, very, very nice. I think that's a very good. I believe the city did do that, and it looked really good when they did it. So I'm hoping that we, as the county, find some reduced costs and time for everybody. 6, I think there was one question, or no, let's see, we went over that one. Slide 6. Yeah, got that. I understand that. Thank you very much. Slide 7, was that the continuation of that, or was it slide 8? Which was I love the, yeah, thank you. Absolutely good. The moving to objective, because I'm familiar with those kind of subjective standards, so very much supportive of that direction. Cool. And then 8, which was characterized as a grab bag, which I really like. I think you already got the low. I love that. You already got the low density. Low barrier navigation center. So it's like the navigator who takes the homeless and the centers and the barriers to getting into them. Yeah, got that. Another term of art. Thank you. And this looks really good. This looks like we're trying to keep up with the county is trying to keep up with the way things are evolving. So
yeah, absolutely.
Sorry to ride the slides through, Chair.
No, that's fine. This is what we're looking for.
I'm done. No.
Couple of quick questions just about the whole direction of what the county's doing. This is member lease. I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around when the question was asked about, is the 30 to 55 year, you have to keep the product at a low rent or whatever, cost effective rent on some of these things. it's very concerning to think that that would run with the property. It probably has to if somebody were going to do that, but I think we're going to have to, get more information on how that's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
If it does run with the property, then the people that are doing it need to know that, because anybody who purchases that property in the future is going to have to know they can't just get rid of it. It's there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something I can look into. Yeah.
So that was one of my questions. And then as for the objective part of this, who's going to make those decisions? When it's just objective, is it the council members?
Yeah. So for that, so currently a multifamily development in a multifamily zone would only require a design review in most cases, if it met all the development standards and so on and so forth. So the process there would be the design review administrator would be looking at this, and also the design review advisory committee. They'd be looking at the project, and in the instance where we change to the objective design standards, they would then be able to kind of go down the list and check off, it meets the standard, meets this standard, meets this standard. And so they would be the ones that would be, checking that. It's still a non-discretionary process in that it's, in that it's, it doesn't have a public hearing authority, but it should be something where they can just check the boxes.
Is that gonna change? Is it gonna be the county just has, their collective group of people making the subjective look at it or objective instead of subjective? Instead of going down the list and saying, okay, it meets all these criteria for the area, are they just going to be able to say, well, yeah, you're close enough, and then pass that through?
I think the intent currently kind of run into that issue is that with such subjective standards, it's very difficult to be able to say that you can go down and just check the boxes like we're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because, how do you comply with walls should match the community? That's kind of a difficult standard to meet. So it'll actually, it'll be easier for our design review administrator and the design review advisory committee to process these basically from an objective standpoint, because they will have, similar to like a building permit, you'll be able to check, like, does it meet setbacks? Does it do this? Are the structural calculations all in place? So it will make it a little less wishy-washy, and they're potentially, and hopefully there'll be less situations where someone is saying, yeah, that's close enough. And it's definitely, this will be our first foray into objective design standards, and it will actually only be applied to the multifamily section. So I imagine that our design guidelines in general are going to be kind of in a state of flux for a little bit, but we're kind of trying to move to better things for the state.
Okay. I'm just curious how those are going to work, and how, what the role of CPAC would be if we're looking at a project, and how we'd lose some control over, hey, that doesn't really look like the rest of the buildings in here. As long as that's passed on, I guess, not much we can do about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, well, looks like you're trying to move in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
There's a thing, CPAC, with the exception of maybe certain special planning areas, we don't, the look of a property being different than surrounding properties wouldn't alone be a deviation, and actually isn't in itself up for review. It would have to be other deviations that would trigger coming before the CPAC anyway.
Yeah.
But it sounds like, I think I'm certainly in favor of this because I think the process and the time, money, in investment that people need to make when there's a small deviation in a setback, for example, or something along those lines, I think that it really is requiring them to jump through unnecessary hoops. So I think that this had come up at the earlier workshop when the county came before us, that we would have some sort of fast tracking process. But I'm also very interested in kind of hearing what the outcomes of this, how to really be objective in the process. So how many setbacks and if it's a deviation from what's now going to be a 20-foot setback to requesting 5 feet, that's one deviation, but it's one that's significant. So I think it'll be interesting to see how those are defined in the exceptions.
I own developments, a couple of them, and I can tell you, it's daunting. If as a small person doing a small infill development, it is a daunting task and ridiculously expensive and takes a very, very long time. So hopefully this will alleviate some of that and give people opportunity to do it quicker and more effective. Possibly keeping costs somewhat down, but anything you can do to help, could be passed on.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with accessory dwelling units, which obviously we would see, previously we would see more of those come before the CPAC. But now with county enforcement of the change to state regulations around those, it does seem sort of unnecessary if it's a kind of standard accessory dwelling that's going in. There's really not much objection that can come forward. So,
I'm still, this is off that subject, but the accessory dwelling, and I know that people are doing them, but is this targeted at a specific group of people that we're trying to help?
I think the overall intent is just any and all housing. State of California has basically just said, we need to get housing as priority. We need to figure out ways to be able to get this built. And so we had some creative liberty in terms of figuring out how to do that with our zoning code. And when you see the amendments and kind of what we've talked about today, that's kind of our efforts. The intent with the ADUs was the same way. It was just trying to get as much housing available as possible. And actually, one of our deviation requests, that will be the special minor special development permit, will be. So currently, you need to request a special development permit to the zoning administrator to allow a ADU up to 1,200 square feet. That would be bumped down to the minor. So the CPACs would not actually see these requests for the extra 200 square feet on these 8. So in general, just trying to make it easier for anybody to
have any numbers on how that program is going. ADUs. I'm just out of curiosity, want to know if you're seeing a lot of permits pulled for ADUs.
Yeah, I don't know specifically how many permits. I know that the amount of public inquiries that we're getting on them and the amount of information that we're providing, it's huge. A lot of people are very interested in constructing an ADU, and these new standards given by the state have definitely. I have seen a lot of people pull building permits, basically for ADUs that they wouldn't be able to do previously.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just curious how that program's going. I know I know someone who's built a couple of them, so just curious how many people and what the usage of this is. If they're building these ADUs, what I'm from the perspective of what I've heard is that people are building them and using them for offices, home offices. Now they don't have to travel to work.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'd love that.
So,
Yeah, and for that, they wouldn't even necessarily need a proper ADU, right? Because they wouldn't necessarily need plumbing.
Yeah.
But to start off with the option of having it as built as an ADU.
I think if you're going to do it, there's something that is out there, you might as well do it right the first time.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that's all the questions.
One quick, just I don't know if it's more a question or more of a thought around the sorry, I said something that must have triggered my Amazon. I'm interested to know how folks who will only be required to have the mini development permit, how they will know. I'm guessing they would need to fill out the same paperwork, permit, all of those requests, and then it would sort of, based on their deviations or whatever, it would go sort of one route or another, or will individuals need to be educated on what that threshold is so they can already kind of fill out paperwork, trigger one direction or the other?
That is that's something right now. Yeah, I haven't really thought about that before. It would take, in its current iteration, it would take staff direction to indicate that someone needed to apply for a minor use or minor special development permit. I believe how it's currently set up in our draft is that it indicates which items can be through a minor special development permit. So it's something that someone could look at the development standards and then know, like, oh, I need this entitlement for this. But I think at first and probably forevermore, there will be a lot of staff direction on how to apply for that. And we typically use just like one general application form. So there might be one additional supplemental application that someone would have to fill out so that they, could on the fly apply for either the lower or the higher level if they're amenable to the increased cost and time. But that's I'm gonna look into making sure that that's something that's readable and apparent.
I mean, I think it seems like the process should probably collect the same data. So at least you have, across, you can look at trends and things like that throughout time, just based on having collected consistent data from any application. I'm sort of personally more in favor of the decision being made at the staff level, so it is consistently applied, and there are individuals who, without knowing, didn't apply or didn't receive a particular fast track or something like that. So that everyone would kind of be eligible for a fast track if they meet that criteria, rather than putting the onus on the individual, the resident or the applicant.
Yeah. And we do actually, we have our 30-day review period when someone submits an application. We do have staff that will check to make sure that kind of all their ducks in a row. So that would definitely be something where we could catch if someone were to apply for the higher level on accident. That's definitely a place that we would have a chance to do that. But yeah, I will definitely see to make sure that we clarify, which one someone might need.
So I think Member Lisa, Member Starkovich had both asked the questions that they had. We can see, Jarrell, are there any questions from the public, or do we have any public comment?
There are no public comments, either verbal or written, for item number 1.
Okay. Any other questions from the county, Thomas? To the CPAC, anything specific?
No, I think I really appreciate all the feedback. I got some great notes and some items that I can look into, and I'll be reporting back to the CPAC about the rental affordability and what happens if the property is to be sold. So I can let you guys know kind of a follow up for that.
Yeah, that would be great. And then you said you expect this item to be on the board's, was it the board's agenda for sometime in July?
The planning commission as a work.
Okay.
Yeah, so they won't take a vote on it, but after that they will. Yeah.
Just if we have our July meeting for CPAC, ask for an update then to see if it's been scheduled or not. Our meeting would take place on July 7th, so we'll just check in then.
Sure.
So that's all for that item. Are there any staff updates? Our next item on the agenda?
No staff updates at this
time. Was that item? And then Jarrell had confirmed that we didn't have any public comment. So in that case, we can go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you to the staff for the presentation.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, we do really appreciate this, and it's interesting to see how this has evolved. So thank you for taking such time and care, and we do appreciate the road shows.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of June, and we will hopefully have a meeting all in July.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank
Meeting
you.
adjourned.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.